Christy is a Bay Area-based designer and artist. His work tries to repair broken connections between people, communities, and ecosystems. Colin will be speaking about his recent design proposal, the Wildlife Corridor Benches. Colin.
Shake, 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 Sinora, shake it all the time. Work, 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 Sinora, work your body like.
I want you to stop and think about, imagine what you see when you're walking in your neighborhood. You see other people walking there, small dogs, maybe trying to park their cars, maybe all going to your favorite park. Now think about what you don't see. Would you expect to see coyotes, mountain lions, or foxes roaming the streets? I mean, this is San Francisco after all. But why not? What if it was possible to invite wildlife back into our cities? The Bay Area was once one of the most biodiverse places in North America. So where did all of this biodiversity go? Cities are the world's fastest growing ecosystems. They're also its most hostile. That image of the Bay Area at night shows us how far urban ecosystem has spread in the last 100 years. It's estimated that in the next 50 years, 70% of the world's population will be living in cities, so it's not getting any smaller. Now the question is, how can we design cities to be more inclusive of biodiversity in order to form more resilient urban ecosystems? When an ecosystem is broken up by a development, it creates these islands of smaller habitats. Animals that naturally migrate, especially mammals, are stuck on these islands. And as a result, inbreeding, genetic deformities, and diseases can wipe out an entire population. This has a domino effect on the other species that are affected by these animals. An example of this is the gray fox, which is a native Bay Area mammal, and they're also known as indicator species. Indicator species tell us the relative health of an overall ecosystem. These foxes reside on the fringes of urban development. They're adaptable, smart, and can successfully navigate this challenging landscape to find food. However, their populations are at risk, and they need these corridor linkages to keep their populations healthy. Linking broken habitats is considered essential to maintaining healthy populations of wildlife, which in turn keeps ecosystems resilient. This map identifies critical linkages that need to be established in order to connect these habitats here in the Bay Area. You can see that we need to create corridors along the shorelines and ridgelines here in the Bay. This is what a typical corridor looks like. They usually take the form of a land bridge over a freeway or a tunnel underneath it. These projects are costly and need public support to convince lawmakers to support them. However, they often go unnoticed. This map here is a map of the sightings of carnivorous mammals here up in North Berkeley in the last year from the citizen science platform iNaturalist. It's not comprehensive, but it gives you a general idea of where these animals are living and how they're traveling through the city. I analyzed this data to find the best places to establish a corridor linkage in Berkeley, where I live. The Ohlone Greenway connects the shoreline to the ridgeline and makes an ideal candidate for siting this project. Greenbelts in general connect communities to resources like public transportation and local businesses. They also provide an accessible link to nature, which has been shown to have a positive social impact on the people that use them. This part of the Ohlone Greenbelt has a large field, which is rarely used. Most people pass right through it without stopping. The field is so open that it creates a barrier for wildlife movement because they don't want to be exposed where other predators can get to them. Greenbelts are known as ecotones. An ecotone is where two adjacent ecosystems overlap. These transitional ecosystems usually have a higher concentration of wildlife because the wildlife in each ecosystem passes through that transitional zone. This is known as the edge effect, and this is why greenbelts are great places to establish these wildlife corridors here in the city. So I cited this project here in order to activate this space, not only for the wildlife, but also for the people, and to provide protection and coverage for the gray foxes and other urban wildlife to pass through this area. The benches that I designed will provide coverage needed to get from these protective bushes in the foreground to those tall trees in the back. And that's why I designed the Wildlife Corridor Bench. But it's more than just a bench. It's an opportunity to repair a relationship. This bench is designed to train and track animals like the gray fox to use the green belt as wildlife corridors. It's an opportunity to tell a meaningful story and deepen the connection to the place and animals that we cohabitate with. The benches are outfitted with camera traps and bait lures underneath, which are used to study and draw in animal populations in the wild. These cameras photograph and upload the images to a social media account to engage the public as fellow citizen scientists. The data will also be shared with the scientific community in hopes of studying urban wildlife behavior. In my design, I often look to my Japanese heritage when seeking inspiration. These stencil designs provided the inspiration for this design on the top, cut out of recycled aluminum panels, which would mimic the bushes that gray foxes use to protect themselves from predators. The idea is that the stencil would be a visual signal to the animals that the bench is a safe haven. You can see here where it's formed into one of these seat units in the scale model. I chose the yellow color because it's visible both to people and other mammals, and it has kind of this powder-coated surface to keep it cool in the summer and warmer on cold days. The overall organic kind of form of the bench is meant to emulate fallen logs in the forest. Now, these kinds of trees often become natural corridors that make travel in heavily wooded areas easier. The idea is that the form will invite curiosity and engagement from people and animals alike. So these benches are meant to be highly adaptable. Individual units are designed to work as a large group, or it can be broken up into smaller clusters. They can curve over and around irregular landscapes. And the different seat profiles offer different kind of seating options for people, whether you're wanting to sit or lean or lounge and hang out. The benches aren't meant to do all the work on themselves. They're meant to work with the green belt in order to increase the impact of green infrastructure in our cities. They're urban placemaking tools that bring attention to the needs of a larger community. It's not meant to be a singular solution to this kind of habitat fragmentation, but it's a way to spark the conversation and get it in the public eye. I envision this design installed in many greenbelt projects in the Bay Area and hopefully beyond. If all goes well, in a couple years, you may see this popping up in your neighborhood, and maybe you can experience how this design helps you cohabitate, investigate, and participate in the success of the Bay Area's wildest citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. I saw those slides. I was like, this is just beautiful. And just to hear all the intersections, I'm just blown away by how creative you are, man. That's awesome. Wow. Yeah.